Today I wanted to talk about something less entertaining, but I think probably more important than some of the topics I've covered so far, and that's existential anxiety or death anxiety. That horrifying feeling that you have when you have an acute, absolute awareness that you're going to die someday. What to do about it, and how I work through those kinds of thoughts, and how I get through the day after having that kind of crushing, crippling, absolute awareness that I'm a mortal being in the universe in a short time frame. So you can't really distill this topic into a short video, but I'm going to try as much as I can. I hate the kinds of articles that, listicles, I guess. It's like top 10 ways to not be afraid of dying anymore or something. You can't read those and find some kind of definitive answer. In fact, I'd really like to do a series about ungoogleable questions or something like that. Our minds are changing a little bit with the development of technology to just assume that an answer to any question can be found in Google, right? It's kind of almost like a substitute for a religious entity or something like that. Ask the Google, right? It's taken over actual social positions in our world, and that's quite interesting. Anyway, there are some ungoogleable questions in life, and this is one of them. What do you do with your own horrifying awareness of your own death? If I really think cosmologically about the scope of the universe, if I ask questions like what is the universe, or something like where is the universe, and it's really strange because sometimes I can read through astronomy books and listen to Neil deGrasse Tyson speak or something like that and not have a kind of existential panicked feeling. It's when I have an absolute awareness of it. It's almost more a visual thought or it's a kind of conceptual thought rather than a linguistic thought. It's not a thought that's bounded by language. I can say in everyday life, and when I talk to my students too, okay, be aware that you're going to die someday. And it doesn't hit me at that point. It's just language at that point. It's when I have a really conceptual kind of understanding, and you probably know the feeling, that horrifying, sinking feeling. When I was younger, I used to get panic attacks that were spurred on by realizing I was going to die someday, and they would last for like weeks, and I would get disembodiment. It's gotten a lot better over time. And so, what do you do? I think you have to treat these kinds of feelings of death as a long term life challenge, if that will make sense. It's something that you're going to be working through for a long time, and you will either come to terms with it or you'll die before then, right? I'm sorry that that's not a very good answer, but it's something that you can't let stultify your progress through life. And I think that what I did was, in my teens and early 20s, was use alcohol way too much. I was drinking way too much, and I'll make other videos about this, but when I was a graduate student, drinking $6 bottles of Carstairs whiskey so much to kind of push those ultimate anxieties away, and it didn't do any good. Now that I have a fulfilling life, I have a home and a wife and a daughter and a career that I love as a professor, and I have a book deal coming up. It's like, dogs and cats and a garden. I'm too fucking busy to care that I'm going to die someday. And I don't know that that's a good thing necessarily. I think that this is what people do, is they just, perhaps they set aside some of their philosophical prowess and stuff their lives full of things, to get away from the horrifying realities of existence. Okay, whether that's good or bad, I don't know. There have been philosophers who have really like obsessed over death, and I don't think it did the world any good, frankly, because we all know we're going to die. That's part of the human condition. It's like, what are you going to do with your time while you're here that particularly matters? And that's maybe one way you can flip this around and motivate yourself is, okay, you are going to die. Well, we're all going to fucking die, man. Get with the program. That's part of our definition of living. That's part of who we are. We absolutely have to die, and everyone will. we know very little about the universe. So I would say having that, if you can rationalize yourself, rational rationalize your way kind of through panic about the universe, or the scale of astronomy or something like that. It's tough to give advice about this, and actually I didn't want to distill it down into advice, because advice didn't work for me when I was going through horrifying anxiety. And the reason why I made this video is, this morning I just woke up and I had a little flash of, oh fuck, I'm gonna die someday, and I don't know what the universe is, and I don't know where I am, and subjective consciousness is weird. I had that kind of weird feeling this morning. I thought I should, this would be like a really important thing to share with people, and see what others do. I don't have definitive advice. I can tell you what worked for me was just building a functioning microcosm of a life, and giving myself goals to work toward, and in essence distracting myself from the reality of being alive. And that seems to have worked. And I think you have to kind of build, especially if you don't have a religious framework for your life, you need to build some kind of structure. The way of thinking about this now is borrowed quite a bit from Dr. Peterson, the Canadian psychologist. I don't want to parrot his ideas, but maybe adapt them into my own thinking a little bit. If you can build your own structure, and this is an existential idea too, of course. It's like build your own morality, build your own kind of goals, and build your own sort of life in the world, build your own sense of meaning in the world, create your own sense of meaning in the world. So if you don't have a religious superstructure to aim toward, and to answer the question of morality and what happens when you die, you need something. You have to have some kind of goals to work towards, something to push you forward, or I would highly recommend it. You don't need it. If you don't have it, you might just kind of wander throughout time until the end of things. So do some introspection. Think about how you can fill your days in a way that's going to make you forget about the absolute reality of your death. Well, I've also found that taking care of myself makes these sorts of thoughts and panic attacks go away. And this might not be the same for you. And I'll still get panic attacks when I'm driving sometimes. They started when I was about 13 or 14, disembodiment. They would last for weeks. I wouldn't feel the same after having a panic attack for a couple of weeks. I remember sitting in like 7th grade classroom and just being like, where's the universe? I'm going to die someday. What is all of this? Everything is arbitrary. Language is made up. We're just apes on a spinning rock. I was really freaking out at this point in my life. And then it was so frustrating, because looking around, it's like, I don't know, people are playing their Game Boys and talking about boyfriends and girlfriends, and I'm just like, I need answers. I started reading philosophy. I was reading Nietzsche when I was an insufferable person at this point in my life, of course, but I'm like 13 reading Nietzsche, trying to read Plato, going to the library. I remember Googling philosophy and what is life and why are we here, and just trying to find some goddamn answers out there. And I'll tell you too, of all the philosophy I've read, I don't think that's where the answers are. This is a distinct problem. Existential anxiety and fear of death and wondering why you're here. Philosophy can help nurture your mind in a lot of positive ways, but I just haven't, for me, and this again, true academic philosophers can disagree with me here or agree with me, but I don't think that philosophy as an academic discipline is going to solve these problems for you. I'm not saying don't read philosophy. Read your Nietzsche, read Wittgenstein, fascinating stuff. Read Heidegger, pick up Being in Time, take a few classes, watch some videos. It might help you a little bit, at least to know that other people have been thinking about huge, complex questions, and you can, maybe that's your pack. I started feeling more of a sense of community when I was in grad school. I was really young. I started, teaching at universities when I was 21, and I started this joint master's PhD program. I bypassed the master's degree when I was 21, and I had a good sense of community then. I was like, okay, I'm with people now who like understand my problems, and we can talk about philosophy and the world. This came out like a jumbled mess, but nonetheless, it's an important video that I wanted to make. I'll probably make a lot more videos about this topic because it's something that's kind of been following me around for a long time, and I don't see a lot of people talking about it in a meaningful, substantive kind of way on the internet. Chat with me about this. What do you do really with your horrifying existential anxiety? How do you get through it? How do you get through panic attacks related to, say, cosmology and the universe? And how do you turn that into something inspirational and motivational for yourself without being, while being authentic? I think it's too easy to just take this and say, well, live your best life. And that's hard to do that's really hard to do when you're genuinely depressed or going through something like this. But it seems to me that something that's really worked is developing some kind of arbitrary structure, or, well, not even arbitrary though, a structure that's actually meaningful for me, set goals that I really wanted to achieve, go after them, and stay busy. Do something that I deem as good in the world, and then the stuff doesn't go away, but it at least goes into the background. I don't have a simple solution for you. There's a lot of peer-reviewed research out there about existential anxiety. There's even a fascinating study that showed that people who took Tylenol had experienced less existential anxiety. Let me know what you think. Let me know what your thoughts are about this topic. It's something I'd like to open up to discussion to other people. I think it's really interesting. I think more people suffer from existential anxiety than they let on about. And hey, I'm someone you can talk to about it. It's been plaguing me for many years. I've found ways to get through it and build a really good life despite it, but it's still there. It's still something I think about. It's still something that I don't think that we can avoid. We really like to push it to the side to get through our days. We really like to push aside the reality of our existence. Have a good one.